Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leader in rushing, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Hopefully everybody's having an awesome Friday as we made it to the end of the week. Really excited about the weekend coming up. Excited about this matchup between the Packers and the Vikings. We're going to dive into that a little bit later tonight on PTA Live, kind of give you guys a little bit more of an update on the injuries and everything else around Packers Vikings. What we're going to do here this morning, it's still morning here. We're right on the cusp of breaking out afternoon, but we're going to talk about three Green Bay Packers that are flying under the radar. One thing that I like to do as you get into the season a little bit longer, I like to kind of look at some of the players that, hey, here's maybe some unsung heroes on the team, some players that maybe more people should be talking about, but they're not, right? I mean, you've got all the conversation pieces right now geared around some of the guys at the top half of the roster, your Jordan Loves, your Christian Watson return. We talked about that a lot. You got several other players like Rashawn Gary. Many people think Rashawn Gary's underperforming right now. Others think he's just fine. He's on track to have a career year. So there's just a lot of different conversation pieces that are taking place at the moment. However, I want to talk about these three players that I feel like aren't getting enough shine, one of which not a whole lot of snaps, but I'd be really, really interested to see what the chat has to say about maybe giving him potentially some more snaps. Before we get into that, though, if you guys would do that YouTube stuff for us, hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your morning. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you talking Packers on the daily. So if you're looking for that type of content, you're watching this video back later, make sure you hit subscribe and click that bell icon so you're notified when we do go live here in the future. Man, let's waste no time. Let's jump into it. Three Packers players under the radar. You guys probably have already seen this on our Patreon group. If you're a member of our Patreon community, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access, where we do these deep dives. We'll post articles. You got chats, a whole different community in there. It's the best way to support what we do here at PTA. So let's dive into the information here, guys. Three Packers under the radar, and all three of these, I think, could play a pivotal role in the Packers actually winning a championship here in the next 2 to 3 years. Let's start with number one, offensive tackle Darian Kinnard. This is a player that the Packers picked up, obviously, off the scrap heap. They traded, I think, a 7th-round pick for Darian Kinnard, and he came over from a championship-caliber offensive line in the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, they're notorious for building in the trenches, both on offense and defense. And some people are probably going, how do you put Kinnard on this list? Now, listen, he's been playing what we call Y70. He's been coming in as that extra tight end on the offensive line and kind of filling that role for us. And he's a player that when he's on the field and run blocking, man, he looks great. Pass blocking is a little bit suspect, but I just want to kind of break down where he ranks right now amongst the rest of the National Football League, okay? 11th overall graded NFL offensive tackle in the league at the moment, man. This kind of caught me off guard. Now, you see the pass blocking grade of 59.8, but the run blocking grade of 91.5. Maybe that explains why he's not a starter, and they're just utilizing him in those roles where they want to bring him in and give kind of a 6 offensive lineman set and also bring in Wiley to play fullback. Typically, they'll shift him into the backfield and play that H spot, shifting over from you. But Darian Kinnard's overall PFF grade now, guys, is an 80.2. And here's what's cool about that. You look at that and you go, okay, well, how many snaps does he got? He's got 133 snaps. So, you've got other like Wanya Morris from the Kansas City Chiefs. He's grading out at a 79.2. He's only got 45 snaps. And everybody else on this list that's graded out this high, you see 600 snaps, 700 snaps, 600 snaps, 300 snaps, right? You can look at that and go, well, if Kinnard had 400 snaps, he wouldn't be graded that high. That's a valid argument, right? That's a valid, hey, that could be the case. Who knows? However, the fact that all these other guys that are grading out this high have that many snaps makes me wonder, should he be in the offense more often? Now, let's compare him across the Packers roster. When you look at the offensive players on the Green Bay Packers roster, Darian Kinnard is the 5th highest graded player there. He's right behind Josh Jacobs, who has an 80.9. Zach Tom's grading out an 82.0. That's hands down your best. That's your franchise tackle, right? You just gave him the bag, gave him a big extension. So Kennard is right there in that range. Now, obviously, with Zach Tom, a little more balanced, 76.2 pass blocking grade to our boy. To Kennard's 59.8 pass blocking grade. However, he's grading out significantly higher, like 9 points higher than Zach Tom in run blocking. So when you take everything into consideration and go, okay, you got Jaden Reed at 89.9, only 23 snaps. Jordan Love, 84.4. By the way, that's where you want your franchise quarterback, is leading your team in PFF grade on his respective side of the ball. 84.4 for him. Zach Tom, 82.0. Josh Jacobs, 80.9. 80.2 for Kennard. You now got Christian Watson at a 78.6. PFF is essentially saying Kennard is a top 5 player on this offense. Yet he's on the bench the majority of the time. We bring him in those heavy sets. What I would like to see, and I just said this on Twitter, and listen, I want to hear from everybody in the comments. There may be a lot of people that disagree with this take. I want to see Kennard get a start. I want to see him play right tackle. And you're probably going, whoa, 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 what about Zach Tom? What if we forget about the salary, okay? Forget about what guys are getting paid. Zach Tom's getting paid top money because I think he's an elite offensive tackle. He's definitely a great offensive tackle, right? So to somehow paint a picture that, no, we can't move Zach Tom because you're paying him all that money, that's what you're paying him the extra money for, is that he's versatile enough that possibly we could kick him into center. Hear me out. When you turn on the Giants tape, what did you see? You seen the interior offensive line getting their ass kicked, right? We've seen Dexter Lawrence many times. Jordan Love just having to scramble for his life as soon as the ball was snapped. Go back to the Philly game. What did you see? You seen the interior offensive line struggling, right? So what if you tried Zach Tom at center and let Kennard start one game? I'm not talking about name him the starter from here on out. But you know what? We're all about mixing and matching, right? You're all about playing career left tackles at right guard. You're all about playing who was supposed to be a starting right guard that you drafted in the 3rd round as your backup center in Sean Ryan. Why not just take a gamble here and say, let's give it one game. You ain't even got to make it through a game. Start him at right tackle, put Zach Tom at center, see if that fixes the offensive line problem from the inside out. And then at halftime, reassess. You know what? Okay, this was a mistake, or hell, even after the first quarter, this was a mistake. Okay, this ain't working out. Kick Tom back to right tackle. Sean Ryan's ready to come in at center. He's gotten plenty of reps there. Why not just take a look at that, right? So that's kind of how I see that. I want to know what everybody thinks in the comments as well. As we got here, Chuck Jagger says, I like him. You know what you're getting with Kennard. It really does feel like that, right? Now, listen, there's been 2 penalties on only 133 snaps. That's a problem, right? However, Zach Tom's got a penalty already on 396. I'm trying to see if there's any other offensive line. Rasheed Walker's got 5 penalties. My God, right? Something has got to change when it comes to obviously the when it comes to the consistency in the offensive line. What are you trying to accomplish with the offensive line, right? You're trying to create a more consistent pass blocking unit, right? You're trying to create a more consistent run blocking. You're trying to just create more consistency in the running game in general and protect Jordan Love's life. I think we would all agree, right? So why not just go this route? I don't understand why we're so hesitant on doing it. Now, if we go that route and we now all of a sudden don't have him as that extra offensive lineman, you can still kick him in there or kick someone else in there as the extra offensive lineman. How about your 2nd round pick, Anthony Belton? Let him be the extra offensive lineman, right? I'm kind of spitballing here, man. I want to see Kennard get an opportunity, and it may be disastrous. I'm acknowledging that. I'm not sitting here saying that you put him in, it's a slam dunk guarantee. This offensive line is going to get so much better. I'm not saying that at all, right? But why not give it a look, seeing how the offensive line has been playing? So now when you look at it on the season, here are Kennard's grade by week, okay? 57, 69, 77, 74, 60, 63, 75, and that gives you the 80.2 PFF grade on the year on 133 snaps, right? When you look at his young career, there's what's wild. He's only been in the career. This is in the league, his 2nd year. He had 71 snaps last year, 61.3 for the Eagles. This year, 133 snaps, 80.2. So you've already seen an improvement in Kennard's game, right? Now, you're probably asking, okay, what about the future of Kennard? What's his contract look like? Is this something that if we did roll him out there as a starter, is that going to blimp up his overall value? And, oh, crap, now we've got to pay him the big bucks, right? Well, he is a restricted free agent, okay? So now the question is, do you see him as a restricted free agent, or do you want to give him a future contract extension if you like what you've seen both in practice and what he's done in the game? So with restricted free agency, again, this is only his second year in the league. I think he played with the Chiefs first, went to the Eagles, and then the Eagles traded him to us for whatever it was, a 7th-round pick. Maybe it was a comp pick. I can't remember if there was like maybe some kind of incentive attached to that trade or not. You guys let me know in the comments whether there was. So when you look at this, right, restricted free agency, what does that mean? I actually pulled it up earlier, and I think I may have put it in the wrong spot. We'll get to the other player in a second. But essentially, the easiest way to look at restricted free agency, guys, is you want to essentially, you've got him under contract if you want him, okay? And I'm just going to read off restricted free agency just as an AI overview, okay? An NFL restricted free agent is a player with three accrued seasons whose contract has expired and can negotiate with any team, but their original team has the right to match any offer or receive draft pick compensation by tendering the player on a 1-year deal. These tenders come in various forms, including first round, second round, or right of first refusal, which determine what type of draft pick is given if another team signs a player and the original team doesn't match. So you see he's a restricted free agent here according to Spot Track, if their information is correct, right? So essentially what you can do is you can say, okay, yeah, if you want to go offer him money, right? If you want to make him a tender offer as another team, if you want to go that route, then you're going to give us a draft pick depending on what we tender him at, right? So essentially, if somebody wants to pay him like a starting tackle, then we can get big money back for that, right? If you want to tag him with you as a general manager, you've got to sit back and go, okay, what is he worth to our franchise? If we were willing to part ways with him, what would we need back? And then you've got to agree to pay him that unless someone else offers that type of compensation. So what would that be? A 5th-round pick, right? So now you flip a 7th into a 5th if someone else sees him more valuable than you. Is it a 3rd-round pick? Then you got to be on the hook to pay him that kind of money, right? But the point here is anytime you see restricted free agent or exclusive rights free agent, you might as well include them on the roster for the next year, okay? Because you have his rights, right? So Ron Sample said, did Kennard get snaps when Tom was hurt? I don't know if he got those snaps at right tackle or not, because he was only out for 3 plays. So I'm not 100% sure on that, Ron. We could probably pull the snap count for that specific game and then go back and try to match it up with the tape. But I wish I had an answer for you there, buddy, but I don't. I apologize for that. So again, when it comes to our boy Darian Kennard, I want to know what you guys and gals think in the comments section. Do you think it would be worth it to throw him in at right tackle and see what he can do at the right tackle position as the starter and move Tom to center? Do y'all think it would be worth it for that? Or do you think, no, Tom's too valuable at right tackle, let's just leave him there? We want to hear from you in the comments. And if you're watching this back later, if you like this type of content, make sure you hit subscribe and click that bell icon so you're notified when we go live here in the future. All right, moving along. The next player on this list in terms of 3 underrated players, all right, on the Packers roster is cornerback Carrington Valentine. And Carrington Valentine, man, I'm over the moon with the way he's playing football right now. He's finally getting a little bit of notoriety, a little bit of recognition this year. We talked about it last year, and that's why I wasn't overly concerned with cornerback in the offseason. Like, man, I want to see Carrington on the field. Now, we were a little worried about slot corner because Bullard struggled last year in the slot position. However, he seems to have stepped his game up this year as well. So you're seeing him with the steady improvement, right? You're seeing Carrington Valentine start to step in to another level of play as well. Carrington, guys, as it sits right now on November 21st, is grading out as the 5th best cornerback in the entire National Football League at a 76.0. His coverage grade is a 78.9. And unlike Kennard, who's got less than 200 snaps, less than 150 snaps, Carrington Valentine has 414 snaps as of the moment. So this is a healthy sample size. You've got a guy who's legit playing, according to PFF, like a top 5 cornerback. That's PFF standpoint. We've broken down the passer rating when targeted and other, analytics, other statistics that we think are important. And I think he's definitely a number one caliber corner. That doesn't mean he's a shutdown corner, but that doesn't mean he's an all-pro corner, right? That means that on at least one of the 32 teams, he would be the number one corner on that team. It just so happens a lot of the analytics are saying that Carrington Valentine is the Green Bay Packers' number one cornerback on this roster. So really, really exciting to see what he continues to do. Now, how does he stack up on the Packers defensively? MICAH Parsons, 91.9. Xavier McKinney, 76.9. Carrington Valentine, 76.0. As of right now, he is the third highest ranked player in terms of PFF grade on the Packers' entire defensive roster. I mean, you're talking about being an integral part of the Packers having the success they're having on defense, having a legit top 10 defense. Some would say a top 5 defense, right? Carrington Valentine is that dude. Keep him at that right cornerback spot, right? Keep Keyshawn Nixon at that left cornerback spot. When Nate Hobbs is healthy, I am going to pull my hair out if they just throw him right back on the field and put Carrington back on the bench. I'm going to lose my freaking mind if that happens. That's no shade at Hobbs. Hobbs hasn't been healthy the entire time, but Carrington is not the problem on this defense. If there is a problem on this defense, it's definitely not Carrington Valentine. You turn on the tape, sticky in coverage, physical in the run game. He'll also break off of some of his match coverage. He always keeps that fisheye technique, his eye on the quarterback, even when he's playing a matchy man-type coverage. He's got good awareness. He's got good length, long arms. I just love everything about the way he plays the game. He's an emotional leader. Teammates love him. He's one of those dudes that you could tell he plays with fire in his belly when he's on the football field. So Carrington Valentine has been, I think, a great, great asset for this Packers defense this year. Deadfish makes a great point. CV is one of the players that MICAH Parsons has helped. Absolutely, right? Pressure pick, coverage sack. In this case, Carrington hasn't gotten that interception yet, but pressure leading to PBUs, forcing the ball out of the quarterback's hand a little bit quicker, and just knowing that MICAH's bearing down on him as well. Rashawn Gary as well with the 7.5 sacks, right? I think he's 10th in the league right now in sacks amongst all amongst all defensive linemen, not just edge defenders. So great point there, Deadfish. Moving along, nothing but improvement so far, right? Let's look at his career. First of all, let's kind of dive into what he's done this year. 72, 79, 61, 45. So I had a little bit of a rough spell there, Cleveland and Dallas, right? 69, 61, 63, 57, and then 79, 71. The last 2 games, and watching him match up on A.J. Brown, he played 63 snaps in that game and had a coverage grade of 81.5. Now, that didn't mean that he was following A.J. Brown around. You guys know that's not how this defense operates. However, they put A.J. Brown on that side of the field, probably thinking they were going to exploit him a little bit, and Carrington did one hell of a job shutting that down. Also, Pittsburgh, he graded out a 63.8, but if you guys will remember, he had a 67.2 coverage grade. He kind of shut down DK Metcalf, too. The only time they really hit on DK Metcalf was when they moved DK to Keyshawn's side. And when he was on the left, Carrington, man, he was physical with DK Metcalf. He kind of got in DK Metcalf's head, and I think he was played a crucial role in the Packers winning that game against Pittsburgh for sure. Ron Sample in the chat, Valentine plays with fire and has a ton of fun playing. That stuff's infectious too, man. It really is. Joe Pack Joe says CV equals mini Jai. He really does. He really gravitated toward Jair Alexander when he was still with the Packers. I see that. I don't want to say comparison physically because I feel like Carrington's bigger. He's longer than Jair is, but he plays with that same type of attitude, that same type of confidence. I think Carrington is less cocky than Jair, but just as competent, if that makes sense. Sometimes Jair had you gotta have a chip on your shoulder when you're playing corner in the National Football League. Carrington, to me, plays with just the same level of energy, the same level of confidence, but not as much cockiness, if that makes sense. So there you go. And Ron Sample says, plays with that fire in his belly. Completely agree with that. Moving along. So look at his career grades, guys. He's done nothing but get better since the Packers drafted him, right? 57.5 cheeks. Jumps to a 65.5 his second year in the league on 371 snaps. And then jumps to a 76 this year, right? on 414 snaps. I apologize, that was coverage snaps. So in 2024, he actually played 606 total snaps. So 414 snaps this year with that 76 PFF grade. What you're seeing, we always talk about it during draft season. You're looking for ascending players that are coming into the league that were ascending out of college. They were constantly getting better coming into the league. So Carrington is showing that ascension since he got into the league, 57, 65, 76. I mean, if you just stabilize in the low to mid 70s, that's going to be a player you want to have on your team for the long haul. What if he starts to crack into the 80 mark, right? And listen, there's a realistic chance that he takes a step back and he finishes in the upper 60s. That's still improvement from where he's been the last couple of years. So he's given himself a little bit of room to make mistakes, but the way he's playing football these last 2 games, I'm really, really excited to see what he does against the Vikings. So let's be honest here, man. They've got a great wide receiver core, right? Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in the league. Jordan Addison might be one of, if not the best, number 2 receivers outside of A.J. Brown and or Devonta Smith, right, in Philly. And then you've got Hawkinson underneath as well. So we're going to get to see what Carrington can do against another elite wide receiver in Justin Jefferson when they do put him on the left. I'm excited to see how he rises to that occasion. Coach Lynn says we'll find out this week. There you go. Jefferson versus Valentine, right? It should be a lot of fun. Now, again, Coach isn't saying Valentine's going to follow Jefferson around the field. That's not how we play defense. But when they put Jefferson on the left, we're going to find out, okay, how can Carrington handle this role, right? And here's the other thing about that. It'll say a lot about what KOC and the Vikings offensive staff thinks about Carrington Valentine and Keyshawn Nixon when you find out where do they put Justin Jefferson on Sunday. If you see him predominantly lining up on the right side over Keyshawn's side, and they kind of keeping Justin Jefferson away from Carrington, that really, really says a lot. Now, if you go that route, and let's say our coaching staff agrees with us that we think Carrington's playing better ball than Keyshawn, who, by the way, Keyshawn Nixon's leading the league in pass breakups. So you've got a case to be made that Keyshawn's playing really, really good football this year as well. So if they start to put Justin Jefferson on that side of the field, it tells you really what they think about Carrington. Let's keep him away from him. Let's try to scheme him open on that side. If that happens and you have the same amount of confidence as a coaching staff in Carrington as us fans do, then you might want to play a little more cover 6 and bend the quarter side to Keyshawn's side, or you could just have a pre-snap call of, hey, wherever Justin Jefferson goes, we're going to bracket cover 4 on that side. That makes sense. So that'll probably be another way to approach it. Coach Lynn says, I want CV on the boundary. I can understand that, Coach. He feels like a boundary corner and how sticky he is on coverage. However, he says field side. See, I think he would be better on the boundary side, me personally, because you typically put your best route runner on the boundary, right? Because you're almost always forced to bracket cover the field side, the large side of the field, right? So they typically will put, like we used to love to put, we moved Devontae Adams around a lot, but we'd like to put him on the boundary because we knew if we went Trey and trips right and then had him on the boundary, then they were going to have to single cover Tay, and Tay was going to win in the phone booth every time, right? The problem with having him play just boundary, that means he's got to become a travel corner, right? Because you never know which side of the field, obviously the boundary can be on the right side of the field. It can be on the left side of the field. I think one thing that Hafley with that fisheye technique, this is something Coach Haddad explained to us when he came on the show because he had been to several coaching clinics with Jeff Hafley up in the Massachusetts area, right? When Hafley was up there at BC. So one of the things he explained is that fisheye technique, guys, that dominant eye really, really matters. And I think Hafley knows that's kind of a staple in how he runs his defenses. I do not want corners traveling with one specific receiver. I want them to play the strong side of the side of the field that's got the strongest part of their game, if that makes sense. So, but that's how I see it. And yeah, so I would definitely rather have him on the boundary, my better corner on the boundary than the field side, Coach, just because typically, you got safeties been to that side. But I know there's a lot of coaches, a lot of teams that agree with you in that regard too, man, for sure. So there you go. Now let's talk about the contract for Carrington Valentine. 1 year away from a big payday, all right? So obviously he signed his 4-year, $3.9 million deal there. It was his rookie deal. So listen to his cap hits, guys. Now in 2023, he didn't perform that well, right? Well, it was only $775,000 against the cap. Last year, he jumps to a 65, and I think he was tied with Jair for having the most interceptions amongst the cornerback room last year, only 940,000 against the cap. This year, he's grading out like a top 5 corner, and his cap hit is only $1 million. Think about that. Now, he may meet that qualification where they get that incentive, the amplifying of the salary cap hit. The salary will go like Romeo Dobbs, because Romeo Dobbs played so many snaps and his production level, he went from a contract very similar to this to jumping to $3 million because he met that requirement the CBA baked into the collective bargaining agreement there with the National Football League. So he may end up being paid more than that moving forward if he meets that incentive. It's another reason, people don't like to talk about this, but it's another reason why some coaching staffs will hold players back a little bit, right? They'll hold them back so they don't meet those incentives. It's an ugly game. Listen, Sean Ryan last year missed out on an incentive like that. It was like less than 10 snaps. I heard somebody say it was 3 snaps. Another said it was only 1 snap, 5 snaps. I can't remember what it was, but it was less than 10 snaps that if Sean Ryan had gotten those more snaps, his salary would have jumped to like $3 or $4 million. I think it was. I think it was $3 million. It might have been 2, but it definitely would have more than doubled his salary last year. So again, that's another game that the team is playing as well. So just something to take into consideration. So the point here is, though, he's been great for the money that we've paid him, but now you're approaching the end of his contract. He's under contract this year and next year, and you'll notice he becomes an unrestricted free agent. So Carrington is not a restricted free agent. He's not an exclusive rights free agent. This is a dude that if he continues to play at this level and the Packers don't see him as a true number 1 corner, he's going to test the market, and boy, is he going to get paid big money. Now, obviously, the Packers will get a comp pick, but I want to know what everybody thinks in the comments section. Would you be willing to pay Carrington Valentine number 1 corner money? I'm not there yet. Okay, I'm not. When I say number 1 corner money, that doesn't mean bottom 32 money. That means when you are considered a number 1 corner on your team, your agent is going to try to get you in the top 5, top 3, maybe even the highest paid corner in the league. I don't think Carrington would go that far, but I think they would look around and go, hey, look at the comps, look at the play time. Look at the analytics, the PFF grade. Look at how I've performed on the field. My clients performed on the field. He's always healthy. All those things come into projected market value. Thank God we don't have to worry about that this year, but next year, that's going to be the conversation. When we're going into training camp this coming off season, right? As you're going into 2026 training camp, there's going to be a discussion being had going, Carrington Valentine get a contract extension, because that's how Goody typically likes to operate, right? I think if he's willing to take a reasonable contract, Goody would love to get that done based off what he's done. But if he tries to hold their feet to the fire, they may force him to play that final year. And here's the thing. If he finishes this year graded in the top 10 amongst all corners, and then next year he grades out in the top 10 again, or maybe even top 5, he's got to make a decision, he being Carrington Valentine. Okay, if they're not willing to pay me top corner money, they can franchise tag me. So maybe I need to give up a little bit long-term for some actual guaranteed money, as opposed to just getting slapped with the franchise tag. And now you got to worry about getting hurt, having a career-altering injury that might prevent you from getting the bag later. So just all those things are something to take into consideration and think about as we move on into 2026 here as the football season winds down. We'll be giving you all that coverage in the offseason, obviously, with the contract negotiations, free agency, NFL draft, all that good stuff. We're this close to starting to build our draft board. As soon as the college football playoffs start, we'll start to create that board and get that access to you guys and gals over in our Patreon group. You can find all that at patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. All right, so let us know in the comments, if you're watching this video back later, let us know in the comments, what do you think about Carrington Valentine? Do you see him as a number 1 corner? Do you see him as a legit top 5 corner like PFF's grading him out? Or do you think, no, this is just kind of a fluke? He's more of a number 2 or a number 3 level corner. Let us know in the comments. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and click that bell icon so you're notified when we go live here in the future. All right, moving on to player number 3. This one's exciting for me, man. Lucas Van Ness, the former first-round pick, 13 overall draft pick by Brian Gutekunst and the Green Bay Packers. Now, some people are going, whoa, Clayton. He hasn't even played. He ain't even played. He's been hurt. Boys, when he was on the field, he was performing, right? We talked about his pressure percentage the other day. It has now exceeded Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary's 10th in the league in sacks with 7.5 sacks. MICAH is like, I don't know, I want to say 5th or 6th with 8 sacks, right? Rashawn Gary's quarterback pressure percentage is at like 12.5%. Anything over 10%, you're considered, all right, you're a good pass rusher, right? LVN is sitting at like 14.5% pressure rate. So let's see what PFF thinks about him. Lucas Van Ness this year, 74.3 is his PFF grade as it sits right now. Okay, that puts him ranked 27th in the National Football League. Notice some of the names around him right here, guys. Notice some of these names, okay? Right above him at 75.1, TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Above him, Brian Burns from the Giants. Dorrance Armstrong, Joey Bosa with the Buffalo Bills, Josh Sweat with the Cardinals, right? You got Ezaraku up there. He's having a phenomenal year, 79.7 with the Dallas Cowboys, somebody we talked about in the draft process a lot. So when you look at Lucas Van Ness and the company he's in here, that suggests being in the top 32 that he's a number 1 edge rusher. It doesn't mean he's top 3, just like Carrington. It doesn't mean he's top 10 or top or even top 15. It is what it is. Out of 32 teams, he could be a starting edge rusher on any of those 32 teams, essentially, and he'd be a damn good number 2 edge rusher. With the emergence of Lucas Van Ness, although it's only 162 snaps, however, he's getting healthy. I'm hoping we see him this Sunday. That's what I was, we were talking about this against the Giants game or against the Giants last week. If he's not 100%, hold him out. Hold him out and let's get that guy healthy, right? So that seems to be what they've done. Hopefully he's on the field there against Minnesota. But Lucas Van Ness, if he continues to improve like he's shown this year, 14% pressure rate, right? Playing really good in the run. They like putting him at 3 tech in our cheetah package when you go 4 down linemen, with 3 of those being a pass rush specialist, right? It's typically Rashawn Gary, MICAH Parsons, and Lucas Van Ness. If he continues to improve, then you may have to make a tough decision on Rashawn Gary next year. And I think that decision won't come in the form of, all right, we made our decision, let's just cut him. Depending on how Lucas Van Ness plays for the rest of this year, that's going to determine how aggressive Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball is at contract negotiations with Rashawn Gary. If you really like what you got in LVN, you would still love to keep Gary, but you can be a little more aggressive. Like, hey, listen, your role is gonna diminish a little bit. We're gonna let LVN kind of emerge here, okay? If that's the case, here's what we want to do. We need to cut down your overall cap hit. How about we guarantee you some more money? We convert some base salary to guaranteed money in a signing bonus form. We'll cut you a check today, but you agree to lower the overall number on the backside. That way we can save some money on the cap hit. Because when you do that, that signing bonus, you can actually convert that. You can tack on voidable years. When you move the base salary to signing bonus, you can now spread that out over the duration of the contract. And that may not even mean tacking on voidable years, but you have that option as well, because we talked about there's a 3-year window open right now for the Packers to win a Super Bowl. That's why you went and got MICAH. You've got everything's in place. You need to continue to get better and grow. You're still the youngest team. That's the only red flag I see for this team moving forward, as Goody's built a great young roster. But what Lucas Van Ness does for the rest of this year is going to determine how aggressive you are in negotiating with Rashawn Gary's contract toward the end of the year. So moving along, how does he rank amongst the Packers defensive room? Lucas Van Ness is 4th highest graded player on the Packers defense. So you got MICAH Parsons 91, Xavier McKinney 76, Carrington Ballantyne 76, Lucas Van Ness 74, Edgerrin Cooper 72. Those are your top 5 players. So you can see he's legit a top 5 defender. Now he's played in 5 games this year, 162 snaps. So it's not like it's a minute amount. 100 is a cutoff for me, guys. Like Tyron Hopper grading out 72.6. That's awesome. You want to see that. But the fact that he's only got 20 snaps, I've got to check the excitement at the door a little bit, right? I got to be like, okay, hold up a minute. We need to see more snaps, because that could tank. He could turn around and grade out in the 50s. I don't think that's the case with Hopper based off everything we've seen in the preseason and the limited time last year. But just using that as an example, right? So you see Rashawn Gary down there at 69.6. And again, his PFF grade has gone down this year. However, with Rashawn Gary, and I keep bringing Gary up because that's the decision you got to make along with Lucas Van Ness, right? There's a lot of people out there talking right now. I was listening to Wildy and Tausch earlier, and man, if you didn't know the snap, if you didn't know the stats, if you didn't watch the game, you would think the way they were talking, and this is no shade at them, everybody's got the right to their opinion, right? You would think that Rashawn Gary is a bad football player. He's 10th in sacks He's 5th in run stops amongst defensive linemen. He's got more run stops than MICAH Parsons. And you see how many more snaps MICAH Parsons has played than Rashawn Gary. MICAH Parsons has played in 509 snaps. Rashawn Gary has played in 425. So roughly 70 snaps, right? Something like that. Roughly 70 snaps. We'll just call it 70. On 70 fewer snaps, Rashawn Gary has 3 more run stops than MICAH Parsons. Think about that. So with all that being said, Gary is still a very good football player, but is he trending backwards? Is his best football behind him? Probably is. And that's the decision you got to make with Lucas Van Ness. Right now, as the 4th best defender. Just got to keep him on the field to keep him obviously healthy as well. So let's see what Joe Pack Joe says here in the chat. Joe Pack Joe says, is it concerning the best season for Quay, LVN, and Devontae White, or their contract year and just playing out of their minds for a contract instead of turning the curve? That's always a question, right, Joe? It's tough too, because you want your players to perform no matter what year it is. But I know exactly what you're saying. It's like, okay, are they going to continue to be that player? Are they just playing with their hair on fire right now because they know, man, my football life is on the line? Could be the case. Do I think they're doing that? Based off the quality of those individuals, just what I've learned about Quay, LVN, and Devontae White, to me, they seem like a very high standard football players. The other thing, the rebuttal to that, or the opposite side of that conversation piece there, Joe, is you also got to take into consideration that they've had to work under different defenses as well. Think about that, right? They had to learn Joe Barry's 34 defense, right? And you're wondering, okay, what's the big deal there? Well, LVN was playing stand-up outside linebacker, right, as an edge defender in the 34 front, and Devontae White was having the 2-gap. So if Devontae White's having the 2-gap, underneath, basically what that means is, guys, you're not just 1-gap penetration. Now, we don't always play 1-gap under Jeff Hafley, but most of the time it's a 1-gap approach, right? So LVN had to learn how to go from playing mostly 3-tech and 4-eye at Iowa to being a stand-up outside linebacker in the 34 defense. Devontae White had to go from that Georgia defense, where I think they played a 4-3 stack, if I remember correctly, 1-gap approach, to being a 2-gap 34 defensive lineman, right? And then, of course, with Quay, similar thing, right? He was playing kind of a 4-3 stack, but he was playing kind of a hybrid backer. I remember that too at Georgia. He comes in, learns Joe Barry's defense. Well, they scrap most of the defensive coaches. They move on from Joe Barry and bring in Jeff Hafley. Now they got to run a 4-3 principle look. Now Devontae Wyatt's got to run a 1-gap approach, right? So there's multiple ways you can look at that question. I'm going to choose to believe it's not because they're in their contract year. It's definitely not hurting, all right, because they're motivated to get that next big deal for sure. So Turt McGirt says LV in year 3. No, let's talk about it. Okay. So here are his career numbers. Again, let's talk about this season real quick. 68, 52, 89 against Cleveland, 65 and 69. You see he's played at least 30 snaps other than the game that he got hurt there in Cincy, where he recorded that sack and they had to take him out immediately. So yeah, this is his 3rd year in the league. His career grades, 62, 52, and now he's jumped to a 74. So you're seeing a floor of 52 so far, a ceiling so far of 74. And I think we would all agree his ceiling is much, much higher than that if he continues to get better, right? So Sean Forva in the chat says, yeah, third year. And he says they have him next year in a 5th-year option if they want it. And that was the next point we were going to make here, right? Extension or 5th-year option? That's the question. So what's a 5th-year option? If you don't know what that is, that's where you can tag a player who is a first-round pick going into their 4th year, the final year of their deal. You can hit them with the 5th-year option, which is kind of like a mini franchise tag, okay? There's numbers that's been predetermined, that'll be predetermined before the new league calendar, that'll say, okay, you have to pay them this amount of money for 1 year if you hit them with the 5th-year option, the club option. If you do that, it's fully guaranteed. So it works like a mini franchise tag, essentially. So you've got to make a decision with LVN. Do you want to give him a long-term extension, or do you want to hit him with I keep wanting to say franchise tag, with the 5th-year option? That's the question, right? So let's talk about what he's earned up to this point. 13th overall pick. Boy, that used to be a ton of money. Cap hits are much, much more manageable in today's CBA. 3.1 million his first year, 3.9 his second. This year, 4.7 million. Next year, he's going to be 5.5 million against the cap. So I've been very vocal about Gary, right? Let's play worst case scenario for a second. Let's say for the rest of the season, Gary's play continues to drop off and you go, okay, writing's on the wall. He's not the same player he once was. He's done, right? You probably need to cut bait. If you cut bait from Rashawn Gary, I think you're able to free up $11 million. It's a little less than 11. Let's just call it $10 million. So if you decide to move on from Gary before next year, you can free up $10 million in cap space against the cap in 2026, and you're replacing him with LVN, who has a $5.5 million cap hit. Now, let's say that LVN continues to play really, really well this year, and Rashawn Gary tapers off, and you go that approach, right? Then you go to LVN and say, all right, we want to give you a contract extension, and you front load that contract because, again, you just freed up $10 million at the edge position by moving on from Gary. So you can literally front load that and make it more, give yourself more cap relief on the backside of the contract, if that makes sense. So I could see them maybe going that approach, right? B. Timmy in the chat says LVN or Gary may be the decision. Yeah, and here's the deal, man. If they want LVN back, whether Gary's on the roster or not, they'll bring him back, and you can make that cap work. You can totally make the cap work with those two players being on the team, because I don't think LVN is going to get paid top 3 or even top 5 edge defender money, right? I just don't see that happen. He doesn't have the comp isn't there for fair market value for him to be paid like one of the top edge defenders. So you could bring them both back. But for me, it's about the long-term roster modeling, right? You don't want to pay 3 edge defenders top money. I mean, think about what Goody's done up to this point. His first year as GM, if I remember correctly, he signs Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith the big contracts, right? So he paid 2 edge defenders top money, right? Okay, as they started to taper off and you moved on from Zadarius Smith, what did you do? Rashawn Gary rose up, much like LVN looks like he's doing. Rashawn Gary gets a contract extension. You're still paying 2 edge defenders. Guys, when I talk about positions being tier 1 importance, like edge, 3-tech, offensive tackle, and quarterback, it's not because I'm so smart and that, well, yeah, that's the most important. Follow the money. That's what Goody's always paid, right? Now, he seems to have a bigger opinion of a cornerback. He paid Jair really, really good money than I do. I would rather not pay a corner top money, because if you got the right defensive coach in place, you can scheme good coverage, but you can never scheme a good pass rush. You got to have dogs that can get after the quarterback while also playing the run really well, which is what Gary has done throughout his career. So when you kind of look at the modeling here, the writing's on the wall, right? They're not going to pay 3 edge defenders top money. You've already paid Micah. Gary's guaranteed money is dwindling down, so you can move on from him. You got to make that decision, like B. Timmy's saying here, between LVN and Gary. I think they could keep him for 1 year, right? Because, again, restructure the contract with Gary, free up cap space, give him a little more guaranteed money, and then you could cut bait the following year when he turns 29 or maybe 30, I believe. That you can kind of make that happen. But also, look who is behind Gary and LVN. Who do you got back there? They love Brenton Cox Jr. Baron Sorrell, I think we'd all agree, has been playing pretty damn good football this year, right? Did he make that list on those defenders? Let's look real quick. Baron Sorrell. So he has dropped, evidently. I thought he's played pretty good football, but he is not in the top 13 on defense for the Packers defense at the moment. So maybe he's not the guy, right? Maybe he isn't the guy. We hope he develops into that, right? But nonetheless, what you're probably going to be looking to do is find the next Rashawn Gary, the next Lucas Van Ness in the draft, and spend a high draft pick on that player. That way you get that extra stud in the stable, and then as you get a little longer in the tooth, you can move on from one of these guys. Because with Micah, essentially what you got, I don't want to dive too much into his contract because we got to really look into the details and the optional aspect of it. But it's really like a 3-year window with MICAH, and then you gotta really make a decision on MICAH if you want to extend him, push money out, that type of thing, right? And all that comes down to the rest of the salary cap and how that looks. So, yeah, it's just very, very, very interesting to kind of see what they do at the edge defensive position and really defense in general and the overall roster. So again, LVN, there's no doubt in my mind, though, he is one of the most underrated players this year, grading out as the 4th best defender this season. So just a quick recap of those players we've talked about, and no particular order, but these are the 3 that grab my attention. Darian Kennard, offensive tackle. Why not try him at right tackle? Let's see Zach Tom at center. Let's see if that fixes the majority of our offensive line problems, right? Let's go that route. Carrington Valentine, get ready to give him a contract if he continues to play the way he has played this season. And, of course, Lucas Van Ness, who seems to be taking that 3rd-year leap. Really, really excited to see how he finishes the year now that he's healthy. Get him back on the field, and we're ready to go. So, yeah. There you go, guys. That's all I got for today. Appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat. Such short notice. I want to appreciate Tim in the background back there producing for me. Thanks so much for hanging out, buddy. It looked like you made the entire show here. So we're going to get out of here, guys. Let us know in the comments, though, what you think about Lucas Van Ness. Do you think he is one of the up-and-coming, emerging top Packers defensive players? Let us know how you feel about the 5th-year option and or the contract extension. Use that 5th-year option to just bridge the gap and get him a new deal, or do you just go ahead and say, no, he's the guy. We've seen enough. Let's get him the extension, right? And Chuck Jagger's asked here, is Bigfoot practicing? If you're referring to LVN, I'm assuming maybe you were talking about somebody else. We will get you guys the practice report update a little later today as we get the final report before we go into Packers versus Vikings. We'll give you all of the latest information there. You said Marshawn. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll get you that info later today. But anyway, make sure you hit subscribe, hit like, click that bell icon so you're notified when we go live in the future. We'll see you guys tonight, 6 p.m. Central for PTA Live. We'll continue to break down Packers versus Vikings and get you that updated injury report. That's it. We'll see y'all later on today. Have a great day. Again, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Dr. Crutch. Appreciate you. Thank you all for hopping in here and talking ball when we go live randomly like this. So my name's Clayton. This is PTA. We'll see y'all tonight. Go Pack, go.
Here we go.
We're out.
Bye, guys.